the plan that they presented for the rehabilitation of the cottages was very high level, and we all felt it was very high level. And even the building permit materials that were submitted were very basic and didn't really get into the character defining elements. And one of the recommendations is that really before anything started and at the permit stage, each of the character defining elements should have been explicitly listed, and then a detailed conservation approach for those elements be expressed in that plan. Then that could have been even shared with the commission. And if that had happened, then we could have said, well, there's a heritage, or a councillor could have said there's a character defining element missing here. What about that fireplace, for example? I think some of us feel that Metro should have recognized that might have been a character defining element anyway. And that, again, that's that consultation piece. Like, is this an important piece? And I take Luxon and Associates' comment that interiors are less important than exteriors for various reasons, and that the approach that they took was consistent with the standards and guidelines. But again, there's this consultation piece that would have made a difference. And then the other, I think there was a third piece. Oh yeah, that ideally that an application regarding a heritage site should actually be reviewed by staff with understands all of the Canadian standards and guidelines for historic preservation. And I don't know if we have somebody on staff who does have that, or whether in some cases we might have to consider budgeting to bring a consultant on for a short period to help with that evaluation. Anyway, those would be the comments there.
Further to your point, I think that one of the character defining elements, probably the most important character defining element in the Heritage Register description of the cottages was the term that was used was the clustering of the cottages, clustering and massing, I think it said. And the idea behind that the phrase was that it's about the number of cottages that are in this space that define it as this special resort space where all the cottages were built at the same time, a particular kind of resort that was only developed during a short period of time, and that the orchard was a remnant example of probably the best example you can see. And Jack Little suggested the only one that he knows of, right, in North America. And that term, the clustering, was taken by Metro and interpreted or reinterpreted as being that the cottages have to be close together, but we don't care about how many there are, right? And so that was used as a justification for demolishing a bunch of the cottages, which is, in a sense, is really the most important thing that has happened to that heritage space, is the loss of those cottages by comparison with the fireplace.
Mm-hmm.
And so that interpretation, there's always going to be space for interpretation with any listing of character defining elements. The interpretation has to rest with the heritage experts on Bowen Island. The interpretation can't rest with a proponent who wants to develop land, right? That seems to me to be the most important kind of shift that has to happen.
Yeah. The character defining was also described as being 12 cottages and 3 parallel rows. And so hard to interpret your way out of that. But the problem, as you'll recall, the council today didn't want to approve the register with that on it. So after Metro had demolished quality cottages that they wanted to demolish, at least in my memory. So it made it very difficult to deal with that situation, which is political, not conservation. In retrospect, particularly if the timing had been different, it would have been useful to have the character defining elements of the landscape, because Don Luxton Association even refers to the site as a landscape as well as individual cottages. So it's clear what the character defining elements of the cottages are, except for the interiors, but not so clear that we're talking about the character defining elements of the landscape. I think that's a learning thing as well, almost to take that landscape piece out and have it as an overarching, almost like a conservation area kind of thing, and specifically lay out those as well. So it's all good learning.
Yeah, the question is, how do we ensure those shifts?
Hopefully we're not under the gun like we were with this one. But
Well, if we don't somehow code these practices, there's always going to be a gun. Every time, like something, there's a threat, it comes with a gun.
how do we do that, do you think?
I don't know, Daniel?
I mean, I think True and I talked about a couple options of sort of, how to approach things on the heritage register. Because so right now, right, we have a heritage register. If somebody came for a building permit for one of those buildings and the building permit met, the building code, we would issue a permit, or we wouldn't be able to withhold a permit because of its presence on the heritage register, I guess is another way to put it. And we don't have there's not a mechanism where we'd say, well, we need to refer this to somebody. If we get a building permit, we don't refer it to council if it meets the zoning and it meets the code and whatever else. And there's sort of different levels, I guess, of, how a referral could happen. I know one of the things is, most of Snug Cove is in a development permit area.
Right.
The orchard is not, and funnily enough, I always think it's funny that the library building is not, the general store is not the development permit area, which is why it's like defining a feature of our guidelines. We've been doing this project that has just restarted to look at the Snug Cove design guidelines for things in those properties, and one of the sections that we're looking at adding is just a heritage section. The mandatory element of which would just be that if it's a property that's on the heritage register, it would get referred to the Heritage Commission. And then I forget, it's still in draft, and the draft language is something vague, like the Heritage Commission then looks at it in terms of its heritage features or something like that. So that would be, if we updated those guidelines, then if there's a property on the heritage register in the development permit area, we'd be referring it to the Heritage Commission as part of the development permit application. So it would trigger the referral. It wouldn't necessarily provide greater protection, I guess. When I look at the recommendations, the report about what it would do, I don't know that it would go fully 100% that far. It would at least open the conversation and open that threshold of it's not automatic, but you need to come talk to the Heritage Commission about this project.
And that's because DPAs have a higher level of regulatory, it triggers a higher level of
it triggers it needs to meet the guidelines. It triggers discretionary approval. It's another perk to get. So typically if you're in the Snug Cove area, you get referred to the design panel. They comment on the design of the building, and this would trigger it as well. We'd also say, and this one's going to the Heritage Commission. So that's sort of one avenue, I guess, is saying, okay, well, we update the guidelines so they include the heritage, and then we probably look at the map, I guess, and say, okay, which of the properties on the heritage register are captured by the current guidelines? So it would be like the cenotaph, I guess, and Union Steamship would be on, but obviously the whole general store is not, and the Orchard Cottages are not, because they're not in the development permit area.
Is it possible to have, I mean, it sounds like a weird workaround,
Yeah.
but could every site on the Heritage Register have a development permit area assigned to it, just to that property, if needed, so that would trigger all the things? You know, can you have a development permit area of one? So that would be one
Yeah.
question.
But I think we would just add the map, I guess, to it. If you could do a development permit for heritage areas.
Yeah.
Areas.
The other thing is like other municipalities have Heritage Register and heritage designations, homes and sites.
Yeah.
That are in neighborhoods that aren't development permit neighborhoods. I know Vancouver does. It's under the charter, so that might be. But there must be a mechanism available to have a review process that's more intensive than just a building permit that deals with the heritage things. And one of the things that was talked about earlier when council asked Metro to allow the assessment by Don Lux and Associates, they came back and said, well, we don't have to do this. We'll let you do it, but we don't have to because you haven't adopted a such and such bylaw. And I can't remember the name. Later, and the name of another bylaw came up that we don't have.
Yeah.
And then Don Lux and Associates said, you know, we might actually include in our report what we recommend in terms of missing tools. And that's not in the report. I was disappointed that it wasn't in there. I thought that might be the launching piece to then go to council and say, look, the report says that we should be adopting this, that, or the other bylaw or mechanism. So that's too bad. But I'm thinking it's even in our work program to work with staff to look at examples of bylaws that would achieve what's missing.
Yeah, so I think I would say, so beyond that sort of, you know, if we're looking at like levels of what would trigger those referrals. So one was like, okay, we just do development permit, like expand our Stuncoat one. The next was like, yeah, in section 15 of the Local Government Act, Division 15, there's talk of, you essentially have a bylaw that can trigger the ability to withhold approvals with building permits in the Heritage Register. And so I think that's the one that Councilor is referring to. It's like we don't have that bylaw. If we had a bylaw, we would say we're not going to issue a permit in the Heritage Register. We're instead gonna, and it triggers then like referral to council, triggers their ability to ask for more information.
They can still demolish if they want to at the end. It's just a register site, but at least we can offer incentives and compliance alternatives and all sorts of other relaxations.
So and then you go down the line of heritage conservation areas. Go down the line of heritage designation, which is the one that triggers then compensation for designation. So you designate a property, the local government has to compensate the owner. Or so often that's done like through a rezoning and negotiation process where it's like the property owner is gaining value in some regards with development potential, and in return it's being designated and somehow it's, you know, that's being worked out. Is typically how properties get designated.
In our thinking at the commission, we've always de-emphasized going to a designation or even a conservation area thing, because then you're adding kind of legal tools that often are seen as interfering with property rights. Whereas if you say, well, it's mainly we can delay what you want to do until we look at alternatives, but basically it's incentives and relaxations, that kind of thing. And sure, thinking it would probably be more celebrated on the island than more the heavy-handed approach.
Yeah, I think, my other takeaway was just, that I know that it's a step in your work plan in terms of like looking at, and I forget exactly what work plan it's about, like researching protection tools. And I think that is something that we could deal with or say, here's some examples of this bylaw under this section of the Local Government Act. This is what it lays out. And we should have, we should recommend to council. Yeah. Because I know in terms of for a staff level, like we council adopted a strategic plan for 2024 last month. So we have sort of our like department staff direction of what we're working on for this year. And so if the commission just said, oh, it's like staff should go develop a bylaw, our probably a response to council would be, okay, do you want to add it to the strategic plan? Like, is this an item that will get on the sort of planning department work plan versus other items that are already there? But if the commission can look at it and say, like, here's some examples, this is really easy, this is super straightforward, we've done some of the background already and bring it, I think that's an easier step for council to, you know, then add to the work plan of staff.
I guess the thing that's, whichever way we go, I guess probably the urgency here is not that we're necessarily going to get an application that comes in tomorrow to demolish something on the register. There are things that we're looking for to expand the inventory, which could end up being on the register. But more, this is something that easily fall through the cracks. You know, it's something that's been identified now. There was a kind of a crisis, an event that got everybody to think about it. And yeah, I mean, I'd be very concerned with that the heritage register is essentially a nice aspirational document, but doesn't have any teeth in it to actually do what you need to do to process it properly. So
Yeah, it's easy to think like, okay, it's not a priority now, it's happened and, you know, maybe we'll worry about it. And then suddenly you're like, oh,
yeah. So it's you know, it's top of the plate right now. Any other comments, questions? Be shy.
I'll just say too, like that the DLA submitted this and then the consultant's actually been away. So I've been trying to confirm with her when she's ready to do the council. So when I get that confirmation that we have it scheduled, I'll send send it out to the British Commission. It's definitely if you're in the state, you can.
Does the is it worth asking the consultant, is this a draft report or is it considered a final? Because they did mention recommendations about things that might be missing in our bylaws and in our mechanisms, and that's not there. So I wonder if they would consider adding that.
Have you seen the note on page 15 about table A dash 1.1.1.1 found in Appendix A of the British Columbia Building Code?
No.
Are you serious?
Well,
Outlines
I'm impressed.
alternative compliance methods
Oh, yeah.
for heritage buildings.
yeah.
I don't know if that is their way of pointing to it, but I can't find the line, but.
No, that's something else. That's around equivalencies and to building code,
Okay.
that kind of thing. Yeah, I did see that. But no, this is around actually having the ability to even do more than approving approving a building permit application, period, other than, you know, there are actually no, I know why you think that would be it's part of that package, but it doesn't give us the ability, the authority to actually go in and take a deeper look.
So I agree. It is marked as draft, so we'd expect, you know, like if council has feedback, we may see revisions, and that was something that I was hoping to see in the report as well, is like, you know, could the experts tell us, what would you recommend? Like, why not? In
Yeah,
a report, give us some, not free advice, but give us some advice looking forward as well for more general heritage stuff on Bowen.
and they suggested they were going to do it. So why are you not doing it now? Yeah,
Perhaps you could offer that in while you're asking about the date.
Mhm.
Maybe you could mention that we were really interested to see some of those things.
Yeah.
Maybe it could be in when we come to council.
sorry, I couldn't hear you.
I just said, maybe when he's communicating with them about the date, maybe you could say that our feedback was we were really hoping to see
Right.
that, and maybe it would get into the presentation for council.
And if they're going to suggest things that are missing that we could adopt, maybe they could provide a handful of examples that they might look at. Yeah.
So well, and I'll pass that along to the commission's feedback as well.
Okay.
Very helpful.
Thank you. Yeah, if there's nothing else.
I was just gonna say that there are some awesome photos that I have not seen. Awesome photos.
That cover, that aerial photo?
Yeah,
I've never
I've
seen
not
those.
seen that.
Yeah.
I'd love to get a copy for Bippa.
Yeah, I haven't, have you, Kathy?
Yeah.
You've
You've seen all those?
Yeah, ditto.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Daniel. Thanks very much.
Thanks.
All right, 4.2 Heritage Commission work plan. Me and Drew. Maybe we'll start with the feasibility for flagging heritage inventory sites before we actually go into editing.
Did you want to share it? Yeah, sure.
Well, we don't need to, well, I do want to share it, but this doesn't require sharing. Update.
Right, so you guys were asking about the Moonwings tea house.
No, about the just flagging, the idea of flagging. I think you were going to talk to Daniel and you guys were going to talk about a mechanism for flagging. Maybe that relates to Moonwings to some extent, but for flagging sites that are on the inventory, but not necessarily on the register yet.
Right, yes, that was related to Moonwings tea house.
Okay.
So, yeah, last time you guys had mentioned that, so that one had somehow got kind of a heritage alteration permit, and you guys were asking how that was set up, since it wasn't on the heritage registry. Because I think you guys were leading to thinking, you know, why can't we do that same process for others? So it is an interesting case, and it is really, you know, it's a kind of a successful case of staff working with the owner, but it's a pretty unique situation that really doesn't work to apply as a kind of process. So basically what happened is the owner of Moonwings Tea House, they were looking to expand on their property, build more buildings, and they were already at their maximum lot coverage, which means they can't add any more buildings at their maximum buildable area. So they basically approached the municipality. They actually applied through a variance. However, they basically came to the municipality and said, you know, we can meet maximum lot coverage by demolishing a building, and we can demolish something that's essentially a heritage building, or you guys can help us out on this variance. You guys can allow us extra lot coverage and in return we'll preserve this building and build something additional.
So the applicant that kind of flagged that this was a heritage.
Totally, yeah. So it's pretty unique. Like they kind of came aboard with the whole plan and had again identified a heritage aspect of the property, which that property wasn't and still isn't on the heritage registry. So anyways, so we did that, but municipality kind of went the extra steps. They didn't just approve it as a variance, because kind of the risk there would be that technically they could make that rationale, and if you just approved it just as that, they could in the future go ahead and demolish that heritage building, and they'd have all this extra lot coverage they're not allowed to build, right? So we set it up. We went the extra step. We did call it a heritage alteration permit. Again, it was. We don't have that heritage bylaw. It was done as a variance, but essentially with that variance, a condition of the approval was a covenant on title, and the covenant had 4 conditions, and all essentially are just that property isn't to be altered unless through that covenant. And basically, but it's a long-standing, it's a continuous protection. So basically, so not just through this approval, but at any point in the future, if this property owner or any future property owner decide they want to alter or demolish or add anything to that property, they got to go back and alter that. You got to go back to that heritage agreement and work with council on that. So anyways, so really interesting case, but just, not something, it's just something so unique that the property owner had just already identified those things and came forward with a full plan. But yeah, so unfortunately that just doesn't work as a reference to, set up a process for flagging other properties. But basically, like as Daniel talked about, like we're in support of kind of one of these bylaw designation, a heritage designation bylaw, heritage conservation area, something to that effect. We really don't want to have any kind of like an informal process of referral, just because as a planning department, we always want our requirements and our restrictions and anything that's going to be referred, anything like that. We always want that to be upfront, and that the property owner be aware before they're applying that they're on some kind of registry that's going to kick in additional requirements, and that we wouldn't want to just be, wait for the person to apply and then try to, refer it over the heritage commission at that point, and then try to deal with it then, and then keep in mind as well, having the designation, the heritage bylaw or the DP area or the conservation area, any of these, those all have those restrictions with them that can be applied. Whereas, again, I think it's a good example is that the Davies Orchard Cottage is just that, if we don't have the kind of those protections in beforehand, even if we just see it the last minute, we see an application coming in, we're trying to deal with it. Everything's just so last minute at that point, like to try to pass we went through all these options when we were all done with the Davies Orchard, but your options are at that point are just getting council to quickly pass a bylaw to withhold approval, things like that. Like it's at that point it is really heavy handed, and I know that's it's been it's been a struggle, like, in terms of what you guys want versus what we're, I know that we talked about these kind of designation bylaws and stuff, and I know you guys have said you feel in some ways that's heavy-handed. But just keep in mind, like, to not have these enshrined in the bylaw or to not have these requirements up front basically means that we'd be just quickly trying to pass a bylaw and quickly trying to tack on requirements at the point when somebody's applied. So if you can just imagine the difference as between those two situations, dealing with that as a property owner, in one of those situations, at least you're aware before you apply that you're going to be on a heritage conservation area, or you're going to have additional restrictions, you're going to have to deal with those, as opposed to sending in your application and just being hit with a surprise that the municipality actually has some opinions on and wants to see the property protected, and is all of a sudden going to refer that to a committee and possibly tack on, a bylaw to add restrictions or to withhold approval. So yeah,
Just to clarify, I mean, we weren't necessarily thinking that would be an opportunity to tack on a bylaw at the last minute. More just to give everybody an opportunity, including staff, to talk with the owner about incentives and relaxations. They're not on the register, but at least we know that it's an important site, and it triggers to staff and maybe the commission that we'd like to chat rather than slap stuff on. But what I'm hearing staff saying is that it would be a bad precedent to, you want somebody to purchase a property and know that it's either on the register or is not on the register, and not have a surprise. But still, something as innocuous as just having a conversation with the owner about, we know you're not on the register, but that we'd like to just talk about alternatives to demolishing the thing,
right.
When Maureen and I recalled the list of, the comparable communities, that list of comparable communities that Dunedin uses. And we called all of those between us. We split the list between us and we called them all, and we asked them, what do you do with heritage properties and properties that need protecting? And pretty much all of them dealt with it on an ad hoc basis, and were completely reliant on staff to identify those places, which is not super satisfactory, is it? But that's how most small communities did it, and so they would only be protecting there were just a few key buildings that would get protected. And I think it did cause, my impression was that it did cause a whole bunch of upset every time. Right, so, that is kind of how it tends to be done in small communities, but it would be good to have something that was, a little bit more codified. Additionally, a lot of those smaller communities are fairly remote, and the people who are working there have been working there for many years. Because we're closer to the city, then we have more staff throughput, so we don't have the same institutional memory as some of those small communities. I spoke to them and they were like, oh yeah, I've worked here for 40 years. It's like they work and live there too. So that's part of it. So I think on the one hand, I don't think we can have an approach like West Van might, where they have super clear rules. That probably wouldn't wash. But on the other hand, I don't think it's not ideal to just have nothing and deal with things just as they come up either. So we're going to find a balance somewhere between those and an opportunity to review seems like.
Yeah, it seems like it'd be very hard to have a blanket bylaw or whatever to deal with, because the difference between private and public properties are so different. I mean, public properties, being in the church, we're all thinking, oh, this would be a lovely spot to be designated. So we could actually have grants and things written on heritage, fixing up the old church, the United Church. Whereas somebody's home, they go, oh, heritage status, I won't be able to change a thing. I can't put in a new suitcase, there's a staircase, you know, so it's the ad hoc version is almost necessary because every place is gonna be so different. From the public buildings to the private buildings.
Which is why we decided we don't want to talk about designation, which is can't alter your property without permission. That's why we just talked about playing softball rather than hardball, and just that you're on the register. We can give you we can give you stuff. We can give you can get grants, you can get relaxations, siting on your property or building code relaxations or that kind of incentives, extra density, all this kind of stuff, right? It's good news, right? But where this conversation is leading me to, I mean, I guess staff can't stop the commission from, giving it a list of stuff that we've got in our inventory. Here, when you have to take it or leave it, close your eyes if you don't want to see those sites. We can still do that, but it does make it. We had a discussion at the last meeting about not wanting to put all our eggs in the register basket, and that we, why don't we build up the inventory so at least we know what's there and it's less threatening and all of that. But it seems to me that if, as a matter of principle, going on, a municipality doesn't want to maintain some kind of listing internally, it puts greater urgency on moving forward on nominating things for the, adopting things in the register, because the only way they're going to be in the system. So anyway, I just throw that out. The reason we asked.
Right.
Yeah, the other thing I was gonna say is that like New West, so I went to New West and talked to their heritage planning staff, and they also kind of dealt with things on a somewhat ad hoc basis. And so I don't think they were pre-designating a lot of the places that I was taken to on the tour that we did, is that there were places where people wanted to develop. So they wanted to develop some of their land in some way, like maybe they wanted to add a whole bunch of density because they wanted to there was a thing for like a halfway thing. And so they were like, we want add a whole bunch of density here. And so the staff were like, okay, well, this is like a heritage building. So if you're willing to do this, then you can do that. And so everything that they showed us had been developed in that way. And then what is it called? A heritage alteration permit. It was all done on those, I think. And then as part of that process, I don't know if they used designation as then the property was then designated, or maybe it was a covenant, but there was some kind of legal way that the property was then bound to that. Because they were telling us how it often happened that people would agree to it, and they'd be like, and we'll do the restoration later, right? And then it never happened, and then they knocked it down. So they did tie them into it in some legal way, but it was done on a case by case basis, with people bringing forward some kind of wish to develop the property. And to be honest, I think probably in terms of private properties, that's probably what's gonna happen, right?
How did people know that there was a heritage asset on that site that the developer wanted to, unless it's flagged in some way, how are staff gonna know that there's some trade, that there's some horse trading that can happen?
We're talking about New West, so like there is a lot of interest in heritage, like heritage is a significant cultural asset for that area. So I got the impression that the staff were just very kind of heritage literate, and that was something that they were flagging all the time, that they were looking at all the time. But I think I got the impression that those people were employing heritage consultants, and the heritage consultants were putting together a package that was then brought to staff. And I don't know how that got initiated, if that was if there was another, like, if they were doing that from the off, or if they were advised to do that by the planning staff, I don't know. But it just strikes me that people, almost every development requires a variance of some kind, like you're always like too close to one fence, the other fence, right? Like it's, right? So, I mean, that's the opportunity.
I guess on Bowen, I mean, with some sites, they're so publicly well known. Helen was talking about the United Church. Everybody knows about the United Church, staff knows about it, so they're gonna go, oh. A developer wants to knock it down and build a condo there or something like that, you know? So in that case, it's, but we have so much heritage down along driveways and parts of family compounds and things like that. You know, stuff, I mean, hopefully we'll know about all that stuff. We'll know about it because we'll have done our inventory work and our historic research and all that, but staff won't necessarily know. And there could be applications following along underneath the radar, not referred to the commission because that's not what we're gonna do. And before we know it, plans have been approved to knock something down. So, yeah.
Well, that goes to the next point, the inventory subcommittee membership. That's what we're gonna be working on, right? We talked about last.
Yeah, and I didn't write down who offered to be on that inventory subcommittee, so maybe we can get this down in the minutes.
Subcommittee?
Yeah,
Is it in the work plan or?
it was, well, it's not in the work plan because we didn't write it down. I don't think we did through taking minutes. We're just working through the plan. So I recall,
Yes.
Andrew, you put up your hand. I put up, okay,
Alex Jurgensen's.
sorry.
Council Jurgensen's turn.
Oh. Councilor Jurgensen.
Oh, I was just saying I'm willing to be on that.
Press C and
Oh,
D
okay.
to send to the
Thank
panel.
you. Okay, Councilor Jurgensen, myself, Andrew, Kathy, Helen.
Just everybody except for me, and I'm not. Hand up.
Okay. Owen, okay, so that's our committee.
Peter, Alex, Andrew, Helen. What?
It's the whole commission, but this.
You better bring the
this-
baby.
This way we get work done in between commission meetings.
Oh, I
and
don't
they're
know.
informal,
We have no
obviously.
subcommittees, so anyway, you guys are to organize yourself, don't forget.
So I wanted to put it forward, a proposal for another committee. Because that inventory work is one piece, but there's also, I think we need a programming and education committee. We can call it the P&A committee of people who want to roll up their sleeves and do events, walking tours. There's stuff in the work plan around it. There's Heritage Week, there's walking tours, stuff like that. And that's a whole different set of stuff. And so if people think that's a useful idea. Sure.
Yeah. Let's get it.
Okay. If people think that's a useful idea, then who would like to put up?
Yeah, you gotta do another committee.
Yeah, it's
So
a
can you say
1-2 punch here.
P&E stands for what again?
Programming and education.
Oh, P&E.
Yeah, Pacific National Exhibition, no, not
Okay.
P&E.
P&E, programming and
P&E,
education.
Ampersand E. And that's like physical education, but anyway, because you're walking around a lot. Anyway, so show of hands for members who would like to be on that committee.
Melissa.
Melissa? No? You're just too busy, right? Okay, Helen, what about, I know you've been doing a lot of stuff on the programming
Yeah, well,
events.
I used to do the walks.
Yeah?
Yeah.
But you're gonna need some support, this materials and all that. Kathy?
I'm happy to support.
Okay, so we got a committee of 2. Anybody else? Couldn't you just support Melissa? I mean, you were talking about walking tours, you've been involved in QR code and stuff like that. Kind of twisting your arm.
There's lots that's drawn on, but I don't have any initiation capacity.
That's fine. Okay. That's fair enough. Okay, okay. Dan, yeah.
Sorry, who's on this again?
And Andrew and I, you and I are gonna have to, so Andrew, Kathy, Helen, Kathy in support, and Melissa kind of in support in the back, in the plaza. Okay. And I'm gonna have to
I
connect
don't want to
with,
write her name down. I feel like that was peer pressuring.
well, I mean, the chair has to put a little pressure on, it's part of the job expert, you know, the turning risks is part of the role of the chair. Well, if we could, if you'd rather not have your name on there, we could just remember that you're there to
Yes.
support. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay.
And I'll definitely turn up, so you will have an audience.
Oh, that's key.
That's important. I could learn something. I don't know how much I could offer, but certainly learn, so I'll come along.
I've got enough on my plate, so I won't agree to be on that committee. I think you guys do. That's fine. I'm gonna connect with you, Andrew, though, because I think you'll be key for the inventory committee. And I know you're away often internationally or across Canada and stuff. And so kind of need to know what your windows are so that we can make sure to include you on the inventory committee meetings.
I can't do that right.
You can or can't?
Not.
No, I'm not asking you to. Okay. I already put Melissa on the
Do I have
spot.
Kathy on the inventory one too?
Yeah, Kathy's on inventory, right? I think key because, you know, archives, research, you know, if only to help the rest of us bumble through the archives and not break anything. Okay, so I'm going to screen share now because we really rushed through the work plan. Because people had to leave. By the way, do we have until 4 today? Because last time we used to have 2-hour meetings. And then we seem to revert to 1.5. Are we okay with this one?
Yeah, I just, council, there was a review of committees and council was asking that directed staff to try to just reel in a bit, you know? So we've done that by having sort of, some of them are meeting less often, trying to keep the bit shorter.
Yeah.
I'm fine, it's fine, up to you
Well, we
guys.
really do need to put the work.
That's fine, yeah, I think I
plan to
replied. Yeah. I think we did, you asked for 2 hours.
Okay,
You
great.
got 2
Oh,
hours.
I got 2 hours. Okay.
There.
I saw the start. Oh, I didn't see the end.
Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, share screen. Send. This looks like doesn't look like you're connected.
Oh, and I got you on the inventory one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh. Got a good connection. Why am I not connected? Does your screen?
Tells me you're on.
I'm just sharing my stop share screen. What maybe this is telling me that I need to have internet access. Okay. There it is. It worked that time. Oh, it's tough being a geezer. So I made a few really minor updates since we last met. For example, the date of the last revision, which is April 23rd. And then I kept track changes in. I don't know if anybody's had a chance to look at it since we went through, but under the scope, you can see some track changes. I don't plan to go through this line by line unless anybody wants. And then I added one thing under next steps and role. And one is undertaking and supporting activities for the advancement of heritage and heritage awareness within the municipality, such as first bullet, Heritage Week, walking tours, second bullet, interpretive signage and wayfinding, and the third bullet, collaborations with community groups such as Bowen Heritage, Bowen Island Historians, Bowen Island Public Library, the Hearth, and others. And I added including ad hoc groups considering historic commemoration or heritage projects. The real reason I add that is that we have been, at least through myself, I got pulled into the strategic planning for or the steering committee for the Japanese Canadian Legacy Society funding. And so it seemed like a gap not to talk about, helping out ad hoc groups with projects that they might have, including what we used to call Japanese Bridge Project. So is everybody okay with that slight
Sure.
clarification to scope? Process, we didn't make, yes. Oh, what?
Just going back up to the last white bullet under registered development, it says exploration of potential municipal flagging system for sites listed on the inventory.
So I guess if we're up against a firm no, I guess that one should probably come out. I'm guessing, Drew, that was a firm no about a flagging system for inventory sites. And I did clarify, we're not looking at slapping on a bylaw at the last minute, but looking at having a way of opening up conversation with owners on something that's not on the registry, but hey, we're interested in something on your site. Is that softer approach something that you and Daniel would reconsider?
I think my experience of an inventory would be you're specifically listing non-designated heritage assets. This is a system that operates outside of designation. And it's more for information for you guys who are making decisions, but also for the landowner who might not even realise what they're sitting on. So it doesn't have to do anything at all other than say, did you realise this is a heritage asset? And then the landowner might say, oh my gosh, really? I love that idea. I'm going to change my plans accordingly. Or they might say, I don't care. But at least they just might not know. It doesn't have to do anything at all. It just can raise a flag and then you can put the flag down again. So it really doesn't have to hurt. It's just for information purposes.
Why don't we just leave it on for now?
Yeah, fair enough. So maybe it's something we can talk some more, maybe go back to Daniel and say, here's looking at the opportunity, not lose an opportunity to have a conversation. Did you know? Did you know you have moonwings on your side? Yeah. Okay. Okay, so we'll keep that bullet on then. Anything else on that page or these pages? I'm moving down, scrolling down, process. There weren't any changes to 1 and 2. So unless there were any changes there, I'm scrolling down to timing. And we spent just a second on timing. And so what this says is the registered development process will be carried out in 3 overlapping phases, commencing for Q1 2024, which is now we're in Q2. But we also see that the process will likely extend beyond 2024. So even once the green one identified we could still be in that next year or part of next year, depending on how long it takes to do research and identify sites. The second bubble is engage. And that's about engaging property owners and stakeholders. So once we've identified sites, then we want to talk to owners and stakeholders about what we found. And part of that might be whether they might be interested in being on the register or not, but that would be the full disclosure page of that. There's a little bit of back and forth there because we also have an engage item on our work program for this year, and I'll scroll down to it, which is the idea of doing a another public nomination, another call for nominations from the public. And so this might require budget. But you'd have something maybe in the undercurrent, something online, where you're saying, hey, the Heritage Commission wants your input. We're looking at doing a lot of research and digging to make sure that we know all of the heritage on Bowen Island, and we're interested if you know something that we might not know, that you can point us to. And so that might be a useful thing to do as we start the research process, because then it's going to flag stuff for us that we might want to do some research on. Otherwise, we just don't know it's there. It might not even be in the archives, for example. So, so that's a useful thing. We didn't get that much input from people last time we did that. Around the time of before the register was adopted, but it's probably worth doing that again. You never know what's going to come out of the woodwork. I would suggest if we do it, we make sure that it's not just an online thing, because it tends to be the older, longer term residents of the island that know these things. And so we need to think about ways to outreach. You know, the undercurrent might be part of it, but there might be other ways to connect with people. You know, maybe we attend Sky meetings or something like that, you know, really reaching out to seniors who've been on the island for a long time. So just throwing that out. And then phase 3 is deliver, which is you're preparing statements of significance and eventually council adoption. My guess is, as we're doing the research and documentation, we might also be doing preparations, you know, statements of significance at the same time as the research is fresh in our minds. So this timeline is a bit of there's a lot of kind of back and forth and overlap there, but the intention is that, hey, let's do the research, let's engage, and then finally there's delivering. So any questions on that?
Yeah,
Or yes.
it's a fairly fundamental question.
Okay.
I'm such a slow thinker, it takes me a while to catch up. But I'm wondering if it in like the process, like number 2, should it be registered and inventory development, and also in time register and inventory development?
And where are you reading?
So here.
What
C.
process?
Yeah.
Yeah. I kind of snagged on that myself. Maybe inventory and register in that order.
Yeah, because we kind of reframed it, didn't we? I think in the last meeting or the meeting before that, maybe inventory is the starting point, and this implies that register is the focus.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like register would be a secondary.
And this was just probably things we really rushed from this section on, so we could get a chance to edit in there. So that's a good catch.
And then I was in timing as well. It's like it has research and development, which is number 1, the legislative tools, and then the second one is register development again. So there's thought that
One legislative tools.
Am I jumping around too much?
Well, yeah. So I found it's under 1 legislative tools.
No, I'm into the timing.
Oh, okay. Version that I'm missing legislative events.
The second one is the register.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
Yep.
So then the inventory and register development process.
There.
Okay, so now I don't know
Okay.
what to do.
Okay. No, good point. Good catch. Okay. So then scrolling down.
Just quickly going further, it says that the process for research and development of missing legislative tools will commence immediately and be completed by Q2 2000.
I don't think we're going to do that.
No.
Yeah, and in fact, you'll notice that.
I mean, maybe, because like, Don Lutz and Associates are gonna bring tools.
Leave them all to
I mean,
us, and then it's all done.
Yeah,
But you know what? It's better to under promise and over deliver
yeah,
than over promise and under deliver.
yeah.
And so one thing I did just yesterday was I updated and I'll scroll down to it. I updated the table
Right,
to take out some X's
okay.
from Q1, Q2 and shifted them over to Q3 and Q4. So, but I didn't change the wording here. So,
if we just say by the end of Q3,
Yeah.
that seems very reasonable.
Sure, okay. And then going down,
Going back up. The last line of registered development on page 2 says that a proposed list of sites will be shared with the public. Is that going back to what Melissa said? That the inventory and the register, or just the register?
I'm trying to find the line. So it's under 2?
The last line.
That would be,
Oh, proposals that would be shared with the public for comment prior to council adoption. As I read it, it would be if it's a list of potential register sites. I'm not sure that we want to be
I don't,
necessarily sharing our inventory. It's more for internal use. So we can
Sorry, I
clarify
see it
that.
says register in the previous line. Okay, so that's clear. Yeah, cool.
I don't think that council has to adopt the inventory, but I also think probably it's.
No, I think, no, they wouldn't adopt the inventory. Kind of a working list, research list for us. I could repeat register though, a proposed list of register. Or a list of proposed register. Not a proposed list. List of proposed register, that's Peter, registered sites would be shared with the public for comment prior to council adoption. Does that read better?
Yeah.
Okay. Now we're into timing. Is that okay? Okay. So, 3 phases, already ran through that, defining roles and responsibilities. We did run through this last time. Melissa had said that the project manager should be commission chair, which I, see, she twisted my arm too. Commission chair, Peter Vaseboard, that's 2. Anything, any changes there, 1, 2, or 3? Okay. 4 or 5. Support staff is needed, municipal staff, consultants, Heritage BC. Key stakeholders, general public, heritage organizations, property owners, building and development industry. Anything there? First Nations?
There's a United Church.
They're a property owner. Should I add First Nations? Unless they're considered a county stakeholder. No reply. What do you think?
They're at it.
Better at it. That's what I think. I think that was a mission. Probably capitalized too. Maybe change the order. There's a problem with them being last on the list.
That's a problem.
Maybe we do this.
We got the general public.
Or right before it.
All right.
Well. Yeah. I think so. Anything else? I mean, this is a very high level.
How about, like other nations? Talking about the Japanese community.
Yeah, how do we do that in a good way? Not ethnic, I guess, that's, inappropriate. I'd say minority groups, but it's probably a better word than that. Help me out here.
Well, it did come under a heritage organization because that's what they they are trying to do on the island.
How about heritage and culture, or not, heritage organization, how about cultural groups?
Cultural. There you go.
Yes. How uncomfortable I am editing things on screen, and I feel like I'm on stage editing. It's an old person thing. Okay, so is that list complete enough? Okay. Yay. What a team, yay team. Okay, so so this is the timeline table. I had one word identify. It's phase one identifies, just makes it clear that and it's all color coded green to match. First, the identify bullet. I think Steph had done that previously, so I continue that on. So just a few things. So 1.1 under Heritage Register, process for updates and additions. That was in the work plan. So those were shoved over from those first two colored blocks, January, February, and I just added 3 blocks, May, June, July. All my cursor there, and then 1.2 update existing. These 3 blocks were filled in by color, but I moved the axis again to May, June, July to give us some time. I was wondering where update existing originated from. What did we mean by that? And I think what we talked about was the existing register, the Davies Orchard site needed to be updated because there's now just 5 cottages.
Plus, the one of the white cottages. With,
BG?
yeah,
I don't think we included BG in the register, did we? I think it was already gone.
think so.
I think so, but I'll check it though. So I guess so then the question in my mind was, does it make sense to do this one up? Do we need council approval to do an update to the register, number 1? And number 2, does it make sense to do that now, or should we wait until we're adding sites to the register and then we do the update at the same time? Because that affects the timing here.
Yes, council would need to approve an update to the register.
Right. So does it make sense to just send them one little update, or do we just glom them all together when we're ready to?
I think doing it at the end makes sense.
Okay. Does everybody else agree with that?
I would have thought, well, I mean, the timing wise, at the same time, but one is an update of existing and another thing is potential additions.
Mhm. In a sense, they're both updates. One is an update to add stuff, and the other's an update to amend stuff. And I don't know if they need to be separate motions of council or in the same motion, but at least it's not multiplying agenda items. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that we're okay with taking that out of this timeline. And maybe that's not even. What I'll do is I'll add it to the same timing as research development. Well, right now, maybe I'll just put the 2 X's here, and if we don't get to it by the end of the year, no one's gonna be too done. And maybe process for updates and additions should also move at the end of the year, because we won't keep that until. Not even sure if we need to update the process, but probably have a process already. But anyway, how does that look? Yep. Okay. And then, so public consultation, this is just nominations, that nomination process that I talked about earlier. So I just moved it, shifted it over from May, June to June, July. Does that sound reasonable? Give us a chance to get our ducks lined up in terms of what we can be doing. As long as people think that's a good idea. Okay. And then owner outreach, I've just left that as a block. That can happen anytime from now on. And some of it may happen, like some of that owner outreach might be needed even to get access to a site to take a picture and do an assessment. So again, a lot of this stuff is overlapping and shifting. It's not going to happen linearly necessarily, and that's just the way it is. Under missing planning tools and bylaws, I added a whole bunch of X's to the end of the year because just uncertain of knowing where we're going with this and the ongoing coordination with staff as well. I'm not sure why we have a separate line for ongoing coordination. There's a reason for it. I don't remember. The staff support. So if we do it earlier, we do it earlier. But is everybody okay with how 3 is? Okay, I guess I need X's up here now. And okay, and walking tour development was more or less the same, starting in June, I think, June, July, August, September needed. Does that sound right?
And 3, oh, you just extended it all the way across.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yep. So walking tour development, that's going to be the P&E committee. That's working on that from, June, July, August, September. All the walking tours going to be in the sunny months. So does that seem about right?
Yes.
Okay. And I didn't put it down for May because May is like, we're almost into May. So I'll give you guys a break. Signage templates, that's kind of related. That's P&E stuff as well. I've got that May, June, July. That's signage for sites like Yamata Farm or other stuff. Whether it's Moonwings, Yamata signage specifically, but I guess we needed to do a template. I'm not sure if we'd have staff design support to do that. I don't know how do we design a template, but that's looking May, June, July period. And then the symposium, again, I put that, what do we? I know, Melissa, that was your brainchild.
I know.
You are going to be on holidays from school is out at the end of June, right?
Yeah. In fact, mid-June.
Mid-June, that's next May, so maybe May is not good.
May.
So maybe it should be moved over, so June, July, and then take that one out. Sure why that's highlighted blue for some reason, not blue, but anyway. And then ongoing support, advice to council, that's next whole year. And support is needed for heritage opportunities initiatives. That's like the Japanese Bridge, Japanese ACLS. And there's no 5.3. So is that? Or are we less good on the timeline? Anybody? We keep working on the timeline, it'll be December and we'll be going, oh, I guess it's 2025.
Timeline.
So then I have to, mea culpa. I didn't scroll down. I forgot all about the cost estimate thing. And this is all populated for stuff that was in the 2023 plan. And so I guess like we've done the strategic heritage strategic plan, so that can be deleted altogether. Assessment process, we haven't done that. Determined value assessment form, but we had zeros on that previously. I don't, because it probably isn't going to cost money. It's a think piece, unless we have to hire somebody to help us. Planning tools and policies, we did put $350 down for staff support and tools. You haven't done that yet, but that's still a valid line. I'm assuming that wouldn't have changed. that's 3.3 under planning tools and policies, this $350 from last year's budget that we didn't spend because we didn't do that. And then outreach and education, we had Heritage Week events, 1,000. And, but we've had Heritage Week already, so I guess we don't need budget for it because we've already done it. How much did we spend in the end? On Heritage Week?
I'm not clear. I just asked AP when I was about to talk to you about other things. I'm not sure.
Okay.
We sort of siphoned it through REC because they did a lot of legwork for us.
Oh, okay.
So it was a matter of tracking down receipts through.
Yeah, so.
Nobody wanted to see me coming to their desk on that.
So retroactively, we could probably plug in whatever that number was. Or do we just leave it at zero because it's done? What do you think is done? 3.3. No, 4.3.
And the signage and that. Okay, retroactive, put it in, yeah.
Okay. And then Heritage Register.
Wait,
Yeah,
Back up.
back up.
do we need some money for signage and outreach?
Oh, yeah, signage.
1.5.
So I just want to, sorry, I was kind of zoning that we're talking about, asking for money. The budget was adopted yesterday.
Oh,
So there's no money.
So I think we had a $500 placeholder for the Heritage Week, I think. But
That was
we
it.
can- Yeah.
So there's no point in putting any budget in for any of these other lines if there's no money.
I'm not sure, do you know if this is, any of this is heritage stuff is included in the planning budget at all?
Sorry, I don't know much about budgeting. Joe. I'm not sure.
Probably not, because it hasn't been approved, right? Like the work plan hasn't been submitted, so. Yeah, like
I mean, she'll sometimes do a little like, they're probably gonna ask for something, kind of a little amount, but I would think that would be that $500.
ballpark figure.
Yeah.
Add fundraiser in somewhere then to the plan. Pardon? You're gonna have to add fundraiser into the plan.
Yeah, right.
Let me see if there's anything in the strategic plan about heritage. Did Daniel mention heritage being in the strategic plan earlier today? Not tons,
Yeah.
so. Go design guidelines, talked about being included in that. Yeah, we could probably do like a little ask if there was something of urgency, but specific.
So like 4.4 key stakeholder outreach, that could include like the public nomination process. We might have to, you know, I know there's something in the undercurrent where BIM has notices and things like that. We might want to have an ad in there for people to do that. So I don't know if there's costs for the undercurrent. And then signage, that's, you know, if we want to do signage, we need to have some kind of budget for it.
Yeah, I think, well, the undercurrent, the mini has an ad anyway, right? So it can just be part of that.
It's got that first page thing where you open it on the left, but it's not very,
I think it's a good page,
People-
just if there are statutory planning notices, we get bumped.
Yeah. So I think that's good. And then, but then, like if we had an event or something, that would take a little bit of budget. But, you know, we can work around that. I just think the signage is probably the only thing that we can't. So that, if there's like $500, probably much of that as well.
the signage isn't cheap. It may be something that we, you know, work on the templates, which might not cost anything. It's a design piece. Maybe we could find out if there's any staff resources that could help us with that.
So signage has been, I think, remember this from the Amanda days, signage has been a funny one because it's quite active in the Parks Department. They make a lot of signs, but then it's often transportation people who are interested in wayfinding philosophically and regionally. And then we like to mark heritage places. So I would think it would be Carla from Parks who would be most savvy in signs, but we're not in her work plan. If there's any flexibility with the communications team, they often have some design work, but I don't know that we can count on any of that at this moment.
Mhm.
But I don't see why we don't just put it in there aspirationally. It seems to be the word of the year
I don't
for
sense it.
ideas, and council can receive or approve or,
Sure.
you know, just those are the ideas. And if they say, well, we've already done our budget, then we can say, okay, well, these were ideas and now you've loosened the lid for next year maybe, or.
Does anybody on our group have design? I don't have any design software experience. So it wouldn't be someone like me. We do have the heritage mascot, so that's kind of the owl, which is the starting point. So you have that logo, but just how a template would all work with that mascot.
Let's
So,
address that when we get
pardon?
there. Let's address it when we get there.
Yeah, leave it in the
Yeah.
work plan and.
And see what happens. It strikes me that we do need a template before we can, you know, if we can at least get the design done, we can say, okay, we got that done. And then we budget for the next year for actually,
I'm not worried about it, we'll figure it out.
so I'll put that in as an aspirational thing. And I would suggest that for next year's budget, we start working on work plan.
Yeah.
Much earlier in the
August.
year. And in fact, well, I was going to suggest November, and if we have to need any edits or changes, maybe January, and then we're in time for the council's budget process. We were
Yeah.
late to the game this year and yeah.
So are you updating this as you go?
I know, I haven't been,
Were you?
so, I mean, some of this needs to be deleted altogether, so I'm not sure.
Delete it, let's do it.
So we do that.
We've done the strategic plan.
Oh, I need to take a look.
I think it looks like it's been copied in just as a picture.
Oh,
Yeah, oh, it is. You know, I wonder if.
do you want to use this?
And
Right on
then,
it?
and maybe Steph, if you could follow up with that, I don't, would you be able to update the budget? Or I didn't create this, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think this is like a few planners ago, this,
Uh-huh.
okay, so
2021 at the very top page.
Yeah, so it's done for quite a while. That's not a picture. So for the year of 2024, no additional budget is requested. Well, this didn't. Most of the costs for the 2024 work program are not for external consulting.
I mean, basically, Peter, like whoever constructed this has taken this list and turned it into a spreadsheet, right? And then just put a monetary value next to each of
Yeah,
the subsections.
yeah. I mean, for this year, most of the costs of the 24 work problem are for Heritage Week events. Oh, there's also something here, funding may be viable by a Heritage BC program extension for the walking tours. That last line.
So we really just, we don't really, communities don't have budgets.
Why did we have
So
one?
this is something that I think it was Jennifer put together, and then she would have gone to the planning department, it would have gone to the CFO, and would have gone to council. And so that's why there was some money in the planning department. So this is sort of something that we would have used to articulate what could be done at the staff level for heritage. So it's not the committee's budget, it would be planning department.
So should we be deleting this section altogether?
Why don't we do that?
Sounds like a plan.
I mean, we don't have that much. If we had a whole bunch of cost items,
Do for now, but I mean, like, it was. I guess maybe it ought to be part of parks or something, but like, if we're supposed to do like education. Part of our remit, then clearly that's to cost money, so. Shouldn't be regular budget, but for this year, it's just that signage, we can just deal with it when it comes up. There are various like unique branding cycles and stuff. If we have a sign, I will find money for it, right? Like, if we have a sign, I will sort that part.
So what I'm proposing we do then, just as a placeholder, we just say cost estimate. That's the heading, and then for the year 2024, no additional budget is requested. Delete the rest of that paragraph and then delete picture.
Perfect.
Delete. This isn't part of the picture, I don't think. And then let's see. Don't know if I don't know if I. Delete. Thank you. Okay. And then we're down to this section, which was detailed task of responsibility. And this is like this is from the old one. We never used this. It seems to me so much more.
Yeah, we don't need it.
We don't have all of these different threads that we had last time. Who's responsible? All this stuff.
Yeah, we don't need that.
Okay, so that's gone. I have something, and we have the committees now who know what they're responsible for. And delete that page. Doing it, but other than that, that'll be the end, cost estimate. So save. And I'm gonna save as, so we leave the back changes in there. And so we have a record of what we changed in case there was any question. And browse. Then it's going to be called.
Draft 2,
It's going to be final.
final draft.
If it's final, it's not a draft.
I like to call it final after it's been to council.
Okay, so final draft. Okay. We use the old English.
It's very immediate.
And that's April. Maybe we just call it work plan, HSP work plan 2024 final draft. How's that for file name? Sure. Okay. And we are done and I can stop sharing. All right.
Good job, you did.
Oh, you know what I'm gonna do on this version, which is final draft, I'm going to review and accept all changes. There we are. Congratulations, everybody.
No.
No? Oh, but now,
Are you gonna vote on it?
oh, for God's sakes, yes, I guess we have to do that.
You need to save and do a different file name.
I did.
Make it-
Because I already,
Saved it with the track changes.
yeah. No, I changed it. No, this is the saved version. I saved as already and then I guess I gotta change it, save it again. Okay. Okay, that's it. I'd already changed the name. Then I removed the tracking, and now it's it. Yeah. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve and adopt the Heritage Commission's 2024 strategic plan?
Audio now. I shall move.
You can't.
Well, let's.
Nice try.
Can I have a seconder?
Second.
Okay.
Thank you.
Andrew, and all in favor? Any opposed? Abstentions? Carried. Okay, and we're already beyond, so do we have some do we have an agenda? Heritage, number 5 updates. Heritage Week was just a recap. We have like a 1 or 2 liner recap. How successful Heritage Week was.
Well, it was, I mean, barely successful. We got quite a few articles in the Undercurrent and that was it. We didn't spend any money on it. They wanted more than we had, and we got nice responses from people saying they love seeing the old pictures, as they always do. But it was basically that the heritage, the recreation department did physical things with kids and stuff, and had something at the Legion. For us, we gathered article.
All right. Thank you, Helen. 5.2 Japanese Canadian Legacy Society project. As you know, at our last meeting, we were informed that Metro had said no to the idea of reconstructing the historic Japanese bridge over the creek because it's a riparian, over Killarney Creek because it's a riparian fish-bearing stream, and that was no go. So the steering committee for that fell pretty hard, but we picked ourselves up and pivoted, and we're now looking to do a memorial. We had 3 or 4 sites indicated, which included behind the Hearth Library area, that space, the Commons. There was the possibility of the municipal ward. There was the possibility of the new municipal hall site kind of behind it on a bluff. And there was the possibility of Sandy Beach. And where we at least have provisionally landed is Sandy Beach. And it's the Museum and Archives that are leading the charge and applying for this. So turn it over to Kathy to fill in some of the.
Basically summed it all up.
Oh,
No, well, we were fortunate when we regrouped, we added Ron Cato to the team, which has been really lovely having an architect on board.
And Ron is a Japanese Canadian ancestry, so.
Yeah,
So can you say his name again?
Ron Cato.
KAT0. KAT0. That's you.
Was there a form? Was there a plaque or is that so words?
It's not finalized yet, but it will be a structure. It will be a covered structure. It will be an all-weather structure. The design of the structure hasn't been decided, but the location has been. So, Sandy Beach?
Okay.
Sandy Beach, yeah. It's within walking distance of the cove. It's a beautiful area. So yes, we've got still have a lot of work to do to get it through, but we're working on it. Yeah, this is the project that was really spearheaded by Ellen Hightower back in 2023. So it has been a long process.
What sort of approvals do you have to go through?
Well, the application has gone into the Japanese Canadian Legacy
Right.
Society. So what we're waiting for, it will be approval for the site, which will have to come from the uni.
What about fisheries and ocean?
Well, we're not building in a riparian zone, so it'll be up from the water. So it will depend on.
So up in the parking lot?
Up where, Sandy Beach where the picnic table is, there's a cement wharf going, a
Just
cement
before the
ramp going down one side, and then there's a picnic table up on the grass. So we're looking at the grassy area that's.
The bluff area overlooking the water.
Like,
Directly beside the Canadian blind,
Yeah,
the lodge there. Yeah.
The only thing to say about that is we had a sign stolen from one of the walking trail signs was stolen.
from that area,
Yeah,
I think it's.
about by the,
Yeah, I remember
Yeah,
seeing
we
the
looked at it.
QR, yeah.
So one of the QR codes?
yeah.
It's there.
Weird.
It's stolen and put there.
Very.
This is Bowen. People take them and then.
It's borrowed.
It's borrowed it.
So it's gonna be like an information in it, or it's not a bridge or anything, just is it gonna be like a Japanese?
The actual design has not yet being decided on, but it's to symbolize the point in time where the Japanese Canadians were removed during World War II, so in 1942. So we want to recognize and we want to create a memorial site. And so it'll be symbolic.
I've been thinking about the concept of fracture and how that might be expressed physically, but that's really as far as we've got.
Yeah.
So,
Does Ron design anything? Like, is he designated designer?
well, he might be, but I don't want to put words in his mouth. We're committing him to something that,
So how would you
We
trust?
can't twist his arm.
no, later. Yeah.
That's good.
That would be a nice
I mean,
choice.
yeah. At least the preliminary concept for it. It may be that the project budget could include more detailed architectural services and the money to do that, but we're not there yet. But we're on a really tight timeline now because we're past the initial deadlines, but we were late coming and then we got knocked down. So it's kind of a tough slog, but yeah,
They always are.
so true. Okay, are we done with 5.2? 5.3, old general story. All stories are old. Library 100-year anniversary. So on February 27th, a bunch of us got pulled together by Tina Nielsen at the library to talk about planning this summer for the 100-year celebration of the library. And we landed on August 10th for the date because that seemed to conflict with not conflict with anything else, but that's still, I don't know if that's still tentative. I haven't heard anything new. So August, high summer, and the concept is a 1920s picnic coinciding with it's built in 1924. It's the 1920s Union Steamship era. And so even like things like 1920s costumes, hopefully 1920s music, live music, a big birthday cake, kids games. I'm forgetting other speeches and all sorts of other. Have I forgotten anything?
Picnic theme.
The picnic theme, yeah.
Frilly hats.
The hats, costumes, yeah. So anyway, maybe even some antique cars. We'll see how that goes, but yeah, it's a whole bunch of stuff. And so that's exciting. Haven't met since February, but that's ongoing. And then action items review. Are there any action items? Isn't that great? Everybody did their stuff. And then other new business, I just wanted to flag. I had taken some pictures. I'd sent them to Steph, but it was on my phone. I didn't have everybody on my. But you'll notice if you are in front of the main library, there are these giant beams or rafters that stick out, brown, like heavy timber. And two of them, one on either side. The top one at the peak is fine, looks like the way it's supposed to, but the other two have significant rot. And they've had significant rot for some time. And this was flagged when Maureen was the chair of the committee. We were on some kind of tour and noticed it. And apparently, BIM staff are aware of it and have looked into it. But that was about 5 years ago. And of course, this is the anniversary, 30-year anniversary. We're celebrating the library, and you'll be able to see that rot. So my understanding is that it could take some money to do that repair. So I'd like to move that that council look into getting an assessment and estimate for repairing, for restoring those wood elements of the general store before it gets worse.
Or at the very least, stabilizing the problem. I mean, it's been in the exact same state since we first mentioned it.
I know.
It must be 5 or more years ago now.
And not even sure whether we know what the problem is. And of course, the thing about rot is rot spreads.
Well, I think it's those caps, presumably the caps weren't adequate. They've been holding the moisture in instead of.
And one of them has no cap now and on the left, and the one on the right has the cap flipped up, but not protecting anything. So Anyway, that would be, can I have a motion to, what would be the?
Talk about it?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I thought, yeah.
I think we should request the conservation estimates for restoration. Given that we're the.
Conservation estimate, not just any old estimate.
Yeah.
Or an estimate for conservation and restoration, yes. Any other comments? Questions?
It's unsightly for its 100.
Oh, there it is. I didn't realize Steph had it up. So there, that's what we're looking at.
You see it there, the one on two.
So at least we could say on the 100th anniversary that we're making some commitment to move forward and address the problem. There's the other one. With the protected cat. So, I guess the motion would be that the commission recommends that council obtain an assessment and an estimate for conservation and restoration of the rotted projecting beams on visible upon the facade of the
We should probably think too about the, the possible ramifications of the investigation. That there could be further damage to that beam.
So does that affect the wording of the motion?
I don't know.
Maybe Steph can read it back and then we.
What about it up there? So you direct staff to obtain an assessment. I'm not, there was another word, assessment. Do you want to get an estimate of how much it would cost to repair?
Has an assessment been done? Yeah, so if so, then we just need an estimate of the cost, but
Is the assessment going to concentrate on the bits that we already know are damaged, or is it going to do a full assessment of the rest of the roof?
So basically, I talked to staff just prior to the meeting, and showed him this, and he said this is probably about $100,000 to take the roof off and redo the whole thing. So well, how do we know that? We don't know that, so we need a paper trail. So how do we get a paper trail? We go to council, we ask for them to pay for an estimate, we get an estimate, and that's sort of a better process. We have some evidence of.
Conservation.
Okay.
And restoration.
So we obtain an,
Conservation. And instead of repair, I'd say restoration, because we don't want it just, generate.
restore, yeah. And it's not really and facade, it's the beams that poke out from the facade. And if it's, and I guess that also takes into account that more of the beam may be rotten than just the part that projects out. So that means, so when they say that the whole roof would need to be replaced, they mean the whole roof structure.
Who said that?
I don't think this is exactly what I didn't want to happen. He's just looking at it, thinking that rod has been there for a while. I'm sure it's not in isolation. He suspects it's gonna be the length of the beam.
Well, that's
I don't
me
think
too.
so.
Yeah, so it's, yeah.
I don't think it's the whole beam, but for sure to replace the beam.
So you gotta prop up the roof. Yeah, and put in a new beam or, yeah.
Have to take it out. But I think that, I would have thought, I don't know, I mean, ideally. Restoration, but they could at least, probably you could drop the end of that beam off without any
I don't think we should be doing,
cost.
we shouldn't be recommending any kind of intervention that isn't to standards of.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is probably our finest heritage building in terms of, if we had a system like Vancouver, which has A, B, and C, this would be an A on the list, right? Okay, so the wording is so far that the motion that the Heritage Commission recommend the council direct staff to obtain a conservation assessment and estimate of the cost and estimate of the cost to restore the rotting. It should be a comma after estimate.
Oh,
assessment, I should say, comma after assessment. There. And a cost estimate to restore the rotting beams of the library building, old general store. Everybody okay with that wording? Calling once, calling twice, calling 3 times.
Hold
All
on,
right.
Andrew's got something going on.
Yes.
It's not, I don't think it's good.
Do you want to put a whereas in, maybe the 100th anniversary or something?
Yeah.
Okay. As the,
But Peter, what do you think conservation assessment?
And a cost estimate to what part is?
The conservation assessment is going to tell how much it's gonna cost, probably. So I guess it's. Oh, yeah, it's probably necessary to have done.
Unless we just say a cost estimate for the conservation,
It sounds like we're gonna pay for it until you give us the estimate.
for conservation of the rotting beams, but you're not exactly conserving the rot.
Well, I think you need an assessment before you can get.
Yeah.
the cost assessment.
Well, it could be a double bullet thing. It's a bit therefore it'd be a result, bullet number 1, that the be it resolved that the Heritage Commission recommend : and then the first bullet would be the conservation assessment, and then second would be the cost to conserve.
Yeah,
And it's the conservation assessment of just off the beams. Or of the whole building.
Let's not chew off more than we can chew.
I mean, yeah. The thing is, like, the way it's phrased, you could get a conservation assessment, they could do a cost estimate, right? And then they could say it's way too much money and do nothing. And to me, the urgent thing is addressing that rot it's only on the beam ends. It's there because of the caps,
No.
but it's creeping into the building.
Yeah.
It's
Don't
clear
know.
when you stand there and look at it, you can see that it's come from the
If I
caps.
need to stand there and look at it, I think you need to do a real estimate to be getting up there and examining it. I mean, I've looked at it too. It's
So
not.
what would you do? You'd core into it, I guess, to see how far the rot goes, right?
My point is that
With a professional architectural conservator would have to do. And I don't think you want to be kind of doing halfway steps on this.
my point is,
I know your point is quite good,
which is what?
too much money.
No, my point is that the urgent thing is to stop the rot from going any further down a beam. Right, like if nothing else is done, that's the most urgent thing, and it has been, and since we mentioned it, to prevent the rot going any further into the beam. And so, just from a kind of practical standpoint.
How about a first bullet that said staff to something like address, prevent further rot from happening, or protect that feature from further rot in the short term. Obtain a conservation assessment for addressing the rot long term, and obtain a cost estimate to do the restoration work.
Think about that, Andrew.
I think the cart before the horse.
so the cost estimate before the.
No.
Oh.
I think the conservation assessment before. in order to prevent further rot.
Preventing further rot. First bullet.
It's a very.
The short term.
Right.
Yeah.
We need to define the problem.
That's okay, the beans are rotting. And that's into my pool.
Well, I think we could be a bit more that
Structural integrity.
the exposed beam ends, I don't know if that's the right word,
That's good.
beam ends appear to be rotting, are visibly rotting,
Evidently.
are evidently or visibly rotting.
See if it's a place sorry on.
Right.
Of the roof?
We're not actually so further, we don't know if it's the roof.
Yeah. We don't want to be defining too much because that's what we need to get
Well,
done.
maybe we can get rid of
The
that
exposed
then.
roof
Let's just
beam ends.
say. Picture that, all of them?
Well, two of them,
The top front doors.
yeah.
Yeah, it's like this.
Over the front entrance.
It's good.
Okay, I have a problem with bullet one. We're not obtaining a conservation estimate just for preventing further rot, because we want to get rid of the rot and fix the problem.
So
Replace,
get a conservation assessment to
The assessment needs to find the
prevent
root of the
further
problem.
rot and to restore.
to understand the nature of identify the nature of the problem.
Yes, that's a number.
Actually, a nature of the problem and the proper course for restoration, conservation.
Say restoration. Good for like conservation assessment to determine best course
For
for
the best,
restoration.
is the problem and the best course for restoration. Protect further up from occurring in the short term, yeah.
I'm not. There's no action there. Obtain a conservation assessment, obtain a cost estimate. What's the action in this? Stand there and prevent the rot with your mind.
Well, there's a short-term thing. We don't want more rot until the project.
I
can be
know, but
done.
what's the ask of council here? Council, can you prevent rot? Like, what is this bullet about?
Protect, to protect the feature from further.
Please put that back.
Okay, I'm just trying to force them to come up with a word to earn it back.
You're so assertive. Well, protect,
What about just combining two in one? So
Mhm.
after restoration to prevent further rot.
No.
no, but that's true, that avoids,
Just put it back.
Okay,
I agree with
there you
Melissa
go.
because,
Should be assertive.
because the first bullet's about long-term. To prevent further rot is short-term
So
protection.
obtain a conservation assessment to identify the nature of the problem and the best course for restoration,
to prevent further rot from occurring and protect the feature from further rot in the short term. And then to, fix the problem for the future. That's the third bullet.
Okay, but this one, we're asking to pay for a conservation assessment, and this is, we're gonna get a guy to come, or girl, and do a cost estimate.
So-
Right, so what is the action in this prevent?
Yeah, I disagree that
What
we
is
combine them.
staff doing
Yeah.
for that?
Preventing it they're fixing it. They're like
So it should,
preventing it, like stabilizing it, covering it to whatever, like it's.
okay, so that's, you want like some stabilizing.
It's like a-
Stabilize,
Okay, this is good.
stabilize is a
Okay,
good
yeah,
word.
so
Because aren't we talking
Doesn't
about,
prevent.
To-
Also.
cover and
No, just
stabilize.
prevent. Whatever, prevent is fine.
prevent further degradation in the short term?
Yeah, that's what it says, prevent further rot from occurring and protect the feature, like that's a.
That's an action item. What's-
Okay, sorry, that was really clear to me when you started talking about covering and stabilizing, by covering or stabilizing.
And then obtain a cost estimate to fully,
That would work though.
obtain a cost estimate to fully restore the rocks beams.
Yeah.
Okay. that's
Covering it could be
clear
a
now.
wrong thing to do. It could keep moisture in or,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, I like the bullet now, that second bullet.
I'd like to put fully before restore in the third bullet.
Uh-huh.
Right.
And then did you want a fourth bullet, Melissa, that said that addresses your concern that if it's too much money, I think what I heard you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is we need a bullet that said, and actually do the work.
Well, yeah.
It's one thing to get an estimate,
Yeah.
right?
Two covers off what I'm concerned about, which is preventing further rot. And
Okay,
then it's three is like obtain a cost estimate. So we could change two to and fully restore the rotting beams. Obtain a cost estimate and fully restore the rotting beams. Does that do it?
yes, I think so.
Fully is kind of a word that everybody.
Properly restored?
Or restore in line with the
Yeah.
conservation assessment.
That could be at the end, because so we're
Oh,
in line with the Canadian standards of, how does that go? Canadian standards for, and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada.
Yeah, bring Canada into it.
We are still in Canada, the
Big
last time
guns.
I noticed. In Canada, and then you can take up the first Canadian, because it's repetitive.
No, it's called Canadian
Oh,
Standard.
it is? Okay, so it is repetitive.
Well, maybe it's not. Oh, you're right.
Okay. Steph loves doing that so much. Conservation place that is perfect. Okay. So are we good?
Yeah, looks good.
We're good now? You happy?
I'm all.
Okay. Is that enough? Is that happy or is that okay? You're still
Let's go-
looking?
Let's go over it line by line.
Okay. Okay. Whereas the 100th, probably, year anniversary of the library building, Old General Store, do we want to call it Union Steamships? Old Union Steamships General Store?
It's fine.
By the way, it's okay, not too wordy. Will be celebrated this year. And whereas the building is included on the Bowen Island Heritage Community Register and, no, it's not Heritage Community Register, it's
What is
Community Heritage Municipal Community Heritage. Yes. And whereas two exposed beam ends over the front entrance are visibly rotting. Good.
Mhm.
Therefore, it be resolved that the Heritage Commission recommend that council direct staff to, bullet one, obtain a conservation assessment to identify the nature of the problem and the best course for restoration. Two, prevent further rot from occurring and protect the feature from further rot in the short term. Happy with that?
We don't like repeating further. Andrew and I both.
Or further rot. It's a bit, it does seem to say the same thing twice.
Yeah.
And protect the feature in the short term.
To
How's that?
protect the feature in the short term
Yes, I think.
or at?
Well, but you didn't start with two. There's two, that's already two up before the colon up above, so prevent further rot from occurring and protect the feature in the short term. And obtain a cost estimate and restore the rotting beams in line with the standards and guidelines for the conservation of historic places in Canada.
It's odd now. It was exciting when you first said it. Well. Yeah,
Comma after
and
estimate?
a cost estimate to restore the rotting beams.
No, because we want them to actually restore them.
I know, but, okay.
How about obtain a cost estimate for restoration?
Well,
Comma.
wait a minute, do we just put restore, not obtain a cost estimate? I mean, they're perfectly capable of managing the getting cost estimates, like you need to direct them to get a cost estimate.
That's the only thing that was supposed to be in this recommendation was that one phrase.
That was the
This is
recommendation.
the main thing, is asking council direct staff to get a cost estimate. That's the thing. You wanna take it out? Okay, you can take it out. That's what I
No,
talked to the
I
public
think-
works
no, I
guy
think
about.
if
That's what
that's-
he's
if
ready to
that's-
support.
If that's what they asked for, I think we should do what they said and keep it in. That's,
They asked for it?
yep.
Well, that was
That's the
a
wording.
water cooler conversation I had with the public works supervisor.
Yeah, that's good.
Do you want to just make that another bullet?
I see what you mean now. I think
Okay.
we could just change it to two, change the and to two.
That only commits them to getting a cost estimate, though. It doesn't commit them to actually doing the work. And as a heritage commission, surely we should at least recommend they do it, no matter how much it costs.
So then the last bullet should be capital R restore in the same bullet. I mean, not a different, yeah,
That works as well.
capital R, yeah. And then a comma
And
after and.
restore those rotting beams in
And-
line with Canada.
Punctuation, third bullet, and has a period, should have a comma. Okay. Yeah,
I think you want, I gotta do it.
talk about writing a
Restore
resolution
those rotting
by
beams,
committee,
right?
right? Yeah. At least we're not trying to decorate a living room or something. Okay, are we good? Are we good with this? May I have, do I need to read out the motion again? No, good. So, can I have a motion for the resolution as worded? Who wants to move that? Owen?
Do we want it to be a professional conservation assessment?
I think that's just,
Is
it's
that-
implied.
It's implied, but
I think it's.
yeah, okay. We could, I mean, does it hurt to put that in?
You think so?
Does it hurt to put it in?
I don't know how it works on Bowen, but I don't want them to just make their own conservation assessment.
Right.
We want them to hire someone professional like you.
Not me.
Are you in conflict?
Yeah, can you spell conflict of interest? Yeah, okay. So are we okay now?
Yeah, I will.
Move it, Owen? Second? Melissa? All in favor? Any opposed? Carried. Congratulations on that one. All right, do we have any other new business? Then I move to adjourn this meeting of the commission at 4:50 PM. All in favor? Carried. I don't think we need a seconder. Adjourn the meeting. All right, thank you very much, Steph.
Thank you, thank you.
We're a lot of work.
Students today.
Thank you so much.
We covered a lot of material today.
Yeah.
Your address.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor.
Thank you. I should have picked one up by 10 minutes. It's okay.
Are we able to,
I gotta turn this off.
Are you ever need one?